Hello and welcome to the first ever issue of Talking Business, the new feature from Tees Business Online. We're delighted that our first guest for Talking Business is Professor Jane Turner OBE from Teesside University. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you, Dave. Delighted to be here.
Jane, so we're going to, over the course of the next half hour, we're going to have a good chat to you about your career in business, but also in Teesside University, where, of course, the majority of people know you on Teesside nowadays. You've had a great career so far, and I know that the profile that you've raised is not about yourself. It's always been about others and about what you're passionate about. But tell us, first of all, for those that don't know, tell us about your role at Teesside University and whatever you want to tell us about that.
Okay, so I'm Pro-Vice Chancellor for Enterprise and Business Engagement. That's my official job title, part of the senior team at Teesside University. Well, I've been there 4.5 years, and basically my role is to drive knowledge exchange between the university and the business and community, and that relates to any knowledge, any ideas, any research and skills, and it's to facilitate that interaction between universities and business and the wider community. We're one university in one LEP region, which means we've just got great opportunities to interact with our business community. But at the heart of that, it's driving economic renewal, economic growth, societal impact, and that's what really motivates and energises me in terms of the role. I have a large team that I'm responsible for, it's over 70 people. And we're responsible for student employability, graduate employability, making sure that our students get graduate level jobs that they deserve. I'm responsible for strategic partnerships with businesses and community groups in the region, and also for startup, incubator space, scale up business. So it's all about driving that economic and social impact in the Tees Valley predominantly.
So a key part of your role, Jane, is really working with the local businesses on behalf of the university, and that's normal times, and of course these aren't normal times, are they? So how has your role changed within this crisis?
Well, I think because we're so connected to the business community anyway, the response from the business community has been great, and I would say within 48 hours the team within the university had flexed and changed delivery, how they support, how they work with businesses, just to make sure we were right alongside them. I approached the mayor to suggest setting up an economic recovery group and for him to chair and lead that, which obviously Ben is absolutely the right person to do that. And the university being part of that conversation to shape and influence that as well was really important. And we've just this week launched a business survey working with a combined authority to go out and talk to the business community to understand what has the impact been, what are you planning for, so we can absolutely align our delivery. But we've put things online. We've got economic projects that are delivered through European funding. The team have flexed the funding rules with permission from the funders within a week to make sure that we're continuing to drive that support for businesses and to upskill and reskill the business community. And actually I've just sent case studies to the Chief Executive of Universities UK, which is the group of the Alliance Universities, just to demonstrate to government the impact we've had in our region as a university.
So big changes, big challenges as well. And I guess so many people, I think, do know about your role and the work that you're trying to do and carrying out so well for the university nowadays. But of course, you had a life before Teesside University, didn't you? And I think it's fair to say fewer people know you for that. So tell us a bit about what you were doing before you appeared on the scene here at the university.
Okay, well, I grew up in Gisborough. My mum still lives in Gisborough. My dad had a manufacturing business for most of my formative years and teenage years, and I used to work at weekends in the school holidays in my dad's business, and I loved it. He obviously was responsible for a team. We lived through 2 economic recessions, remortgaged the house. One winter we lived on soup, I remember. So I understand the ups and downs of being a business owner. So I always had this fascination in, firstly, looking at my dad as my dad, but my dad as a leader of a business. I saw those 2 perspectives. So I think my interest in leadership developed from there, but also massive interest and understanding around the ups and downs of small businesses and what they face and the challenges, but what they can
Yeah,
contribute.
great introduction. What sort of manufacturing business are we talking, Jane?
Sign manufacturing.
Right. Okay. And I'm intrigued. We've got to. I can't let you that go. You know, tell us about living on soup for a summer.
Well, yeah, I was a teenager at the time, and times were really tough. The business was going through. The economy was going through a recession. My mum and dad had remortgaged the house, and times were really, really tough. But they kept going. My mum worked in the business with my dad as well, and just had huge respect for them. So we just got on with it and just accepted that that was the norm. I went to school with a lot of people whose parents worked at ICI. Very different experience, very cushioned, arguably, but it just taught me the ups and downs, and we're always just a step away from insecurity, I guess. And so take job security and treating people with respect very seriously in my role now, but that was certainly in the part of the DNA in my upbringing as well.
I guess it's given you a great respect for the risk takers in business as well. Those that do take that leap into the unknown and start their own business because of something that they're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad worked for another business based in Newcastle at the time, and he always had this, I guess, itch he couldn't scratch, which was, I want to do something. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to run my own business. So again, huge respect for him for setting that up.
And what were you doing immediately before the university then?
Just before that, I was at Northumbria University. So I was there for 11 years. Prior to that, I was at Benfield Motor Group. So I was the head of HR there, and learned a lot. That's a third generation family business. Prior to that, I was at Orange as a leadership specialist, so a global business. Prior to that, I worked for the NHS as a training officer. And then I was a single mum at 19. So I went to college in my early 20s and lectured part-time, studied part-time, and then was bringing my two children up by then. But I've had my dad's business, the NHS, the global business, a third generation family business, and academia. And I just think that gives me a real understanding of businesses, the private sector, the public sector, the community sector. And I was a chair of a charitable organisation for a number of years as well. So, and I just think it's important that they've been conscious decisions to make sure I was legitimate with the business community.
What was I've got to ask you, Jane, what was the challenge like of raising two young children up at that time and trying to start out in your career?
It was a challenge. Self-doubt crept in a lot. You know, am I good enough to do this? Should I be doing this, or should I be concentrating on my family? But again, I go back to that, just something internally, a driver to say, your passion and interest is in business. So my HNC was in business and finance, my degree was in business, my master's was in human resource management. So it always had that business vein to it. So yeah, that constant juggling of, am I doing the right thing? Am I a good enough parent? Am I a good enough student? Am I contributing enough? But all that was always overridden by this real passion to just get on and become something.
One thing everybody's, so many of us are having to adapt to right now is becoming home teachers. So you were doing a bit of that in your younger days as well, teaching two young ones at the same time, as balancing that with a career too.
Yeah, so I can understand colleagues now that are homeschooling as well as doing their day jobs as well. I mean, and my daughter's a deputy head, so I think teachers will be perceived very differently in a positive light now as a result of this, in terms of the responsibility that is bringing for, and the challenge and the pressure of that, to be good teachers as well as good parents.
Big challenges for us. I know you were an executive coach for many years, and with a doctorate in business leadership, you've worked with many senior leaders, and leadership development as a subject you are really passionate about. So what's your view on leadership required during the current COVID pandemic? Because these are unprecedented and challenging times that none of us can have prepared for.
They are, and I think the word I would use to describe it is compassionate leadership. So genuinely showing that you care about people. That's a significant ask for many leaders, but also historically, the way we've taught leadership, certainly in business schools, has often been about the charismatic, the heroic, the transformational leader, all these different theories. But my doctoral research was around authenticity. And again, I go back to my experiences of my dad left school at 15. It wasn't about ego. It was just a genuine man who wanted to do the right thing by people. But that's a difficult ask for leaders at the moment. I know I've been talking to a number of business owners whose, their whole livelihood is at risk. They're balancing that with balancing the concerns of their employees as well. That's a really tough place to be. And the levels of trust in our leaders and managers historically across the world are pretty low. But those who show more compassion, the research shows that they generate greater trust with their employees. And with my HR hat on, we've talked about employees being the greatest asset for many years. But I think there's an opportunity now for leaders to do the right thing, treat people with respect, show compassion. And people will remember that for a very long time to come, because times are going to be tough and the ask's going to be tough of staff moving forward. And they will remember how their leaders treated them during this period.
And I mean, the world leaders have obviously come to the fore more than ever right now. And I know you've got some strong views on some of the world leaders that have really come to the fore. And as gender champion for the university, you've got strong views about such as Angela Merkel, that is perhaps the most well-known of the world leaders, that are female world leaders at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's Germany, there's Taiwan, there's New Zealand, there's Iceland, there's Finland, there's Norway, there's Denmark, all led by female prime ministers at the moment, and all have managed to keep a handle on COVID. So Angela Merkel came out very early on and said, up to 70% of us could be infected with this. I'm taking this really seriously. You need to take this really seriously. Testing from the start, 2,673 deaths in that country. I mean, every death is appalling. But if you compare that to where we're at and where America's at and where India's at, that's a very different statistic. The New Zealand Prime Minister, again, self-isolation came in very early when there were just 6 cases. They've had 21 deaths in that country. And again, real compassion, and she's interacted. There's a story of her being in a hoodie on Facebook, interacting with their population. And then the Norwegian Prime Minister, she talked directly to children, asked parents not to be part of that conversation, to say, it's all right to be frightened, we're in this together, we'll support you. So just some examples of a different style of leadership. And again, research shows that women are more able to show compassion and demonstrate compassion in leader roles than potentially men are.
Do you think that's been potentially missing in the leadership in this country?
I do. I think it's been, I do actually. I think there's a lot of pressure for it to be very ego driven, and I think we tend to look at leaders in terms of their confidence versus their competence sometimes. But yeah, we could have been looking to other countries to see what they were doing and acted a lot.
Because there's a real difficulty. The balance that seems to be going on, the debate that seems to be going on is, and one thing that somebody said to me a couple of days ago is, well, the government is doing great for business, but not so great for health and ultimately saving lives. And it's such a tough balance for the economy and the country's health, isn't it?
It is a tough balance, but I would suggest if the government had intervened sooner with testing, with PPE equipment, yes, they've done a great job for the economy at the moment. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what they're going to do in terms of the medium and the longer term. But there were still some significant decisions, I think, that were missed at the start of this, and we knew about this, January. We knew it was coming, and we only had to look to Italy to look at the impact there. So. And leadership has something to do with that. It's got to, in terms of the way decisions are made. And unfortunately, our Prime Minister got COVID in the midst of all of this, which didn't help either, but helped, I think, bring it home to people that this was real, but arguably a little too late in the day.
Now, I'm going to change the subject here, because I know through your role as an ambassador for enterprise and business engagement, and indeed gender champion for the university, you became an early influencer in the Tees Businesswomen Awards when my business partner Martin Walker and I approached you, or I can't remember how it happened. You approached us, and we had an early meeting, and you did become a real influence. Now, not everyone agrees with the existence, the very existence of the awards, or the need for business women awards, do they? But why do you think they're important?
I think they're really important for the Tees Valley. And I think that, and you and I had conversations where I actually said to you, if I see another man on the front of your magazine, I'll scream. And your response back to me was, but where are the female leaders in the region? We're struggling to connect.
Yeah, and I've got to say that, look at the two on the wall behind me. And I bet you can't say that you've got a picture of me on your wall.
Oh, I have actually, yes. Not in this room though.
That's good to hear. We'll have that another conversation another day.
But the awards just raised the profile of women, 2 women and 2 men in the region. It created a community and some momentum, and it created a network of women and female leaders in the region. And if it took the award ceremony to do that, then I think that's a brilliant thing. And yeah, people might say we shouldn't be doing them, and I completely agree. But the fact is, gender equality in the world and in the UK is still miles behind where it needs to be.
Because some people will say we already have gender equality, in the UK. There's equal opportunities, aren't there?
Yeah, well, again, you only have to look at the research. We've got the UK's got the highest gender pay gap in Europe. You look at the FTSE 250 and the prevalence of women on the leadership teams and chief executives. And I know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, women's roles were very different, and there is some time that there is a time lag, but anything we can do to accelerate and progress that. And arguably, you're missing out on 50% of the talent in the world's population. Why would you do that? And on International Women's Day this year, we had 120 schoolgirls in over 2 days, and we were asking them for their views on gender equality, and it was so apparent from their feedback that they do not feel that there is parity between them and the boys at school. And the dinner I hosted that evening that you attended, I'd said that day, some of the girls from a couple of schools in particular said the boys referred to them as washing machines because that was their job, to do the domestic work in the house, and that was how they were nicknamed at school.
Yeah, you misplaced, and shows how far we have to come, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
the awards, in my view, brilliant thing.
Thank you, and fortunately, lots of people do agree, and I think that I think another thing you've always said is that we hope that in a few years' time we can say that they're not needed anymore, and the sooner that comes, the better. As much as we all enjoy what a fantastic celebratory evening it is, and got a big challenge to deliver this year's event, but that's for another occasion. And of course, that takes us to on a special night at Wynyard Hall last October. You received a standing ovation when you received an award for your outstanding achievement at the Tees Business Women Awards. You'd already been shortlisted as well for 2 other categories, I seem to remember. So tell us about, what did that mean for you? Because you understandably struggled to hold back the tears that evening.
Well, it was a complete shock for a start, because if you remember, I had my coat on and I was leaving the venue, and Martin got hold of me and said, "You can't leave." And I said, "Yes, I can." So it was a complete shock. And I'd never had a standing ovation in my life. I didn't expect anything like that. And it was just... and my whole motivation isn't to get awards for me, it's to facilitate and enable other people. And so it was shock, I was overwhelmed, and it was just a lot to take in the moment. I mean, lovely reflections immediately after the event, 10 minutes, 20 minutes after, but in the moment, yes, completely caught unawares and unexpected.
Of course, this was all about your achievements, which were made all the more remarkable because of your backstory that I think a lot of people know about, because you've always been brave enough to speak out about it, that you've been living with for 2.5 years, I believe it is now, with ovarian cancer. I always find it so disarming that the way that you're so open and transparent about the way you talk about, some people call it the C word and almost shy away from it. But you've always had a different attitude and spoken out about it. What's behind your thinking and your mindset there?
Well, ovarian cancer in particular is known as the silent killer. I was diagnosed with very late stage ovarian cancer, and I literally had 2 weeks of symptoms, which was just a swollen tummy, abdomen, that was it. Um, so, and it's very under-researched and very underinvested in. So I wanted to do something about that because I didn't want other women to face the same challenges that I had. And again, I go back to my upbringing, that always been encouraged to speak the truth and be honest, so that other people, for me, don't have to necessarily go through the same experience that I've had to go to. So, and I can separate out my head and talk quite dispassionately about cancer if I can keep it factual, without the emotion and histrionics creeping in. So I'm just keen to get the message out there and raise awareness of the symptoms.
Because I know that you've become a campaigner for the ovarian cancer charity, and really what you're using your position to try and get that message out there for others, that hopefully it will avoid heartache for others.
Absolutely. And I was having chemo last Friday, and the sister on the chemo ward just asked me if I would do an interview, to try and encourage people, because there's been such a drop-off in referrals for cancer since COVID-19 outbreak, 75% in some regions. So they asked me if I would just be interviewed about why I'm coming to hospital still for treatment, and to offer some encouragement and support. So again, just very keen, if I could save one person from a severe cancer diagnosis by doing that, then I'm adding something back, giving something back.
I think you're amazing, and I'm sure I can speak for many other people when I say that. So how has cancer changed you and your own mindset? Because one thing I have noticed is it hasn't stopped you being any more driven about your passion for the university and everything you're trying to deliver through the university.
It stopped me in my tracks for a while. 2.5 years ago, I was fit, I was healthy, I exercised every day. So, and as I said, the symptoms were only there for a couple of weeks. So, complete shock, extensive surgery, and then 6 weeks later, chemotherapy. On my good days, I take complete advantage of life, of nature, of what's around me. But I've also been very enabled. I've got a brilliant boss, the Vice Chancellor at Teesside University, Professor Paul Crone. He's just been absolutely amazing. So I've been enabled to continue to work. And the conversation I had with him and colleagues very early on was, we don't talk about the cancer at work. I'm here to just get on and deliver the day job. And my colleagues have respected that, so it's when I'm at work, it's as if I don't have it. So that's a really, really helpful place for me to be. But yeah, you just value much more. And I think COVID has helped all of us to look at this, about what's important in life. And it's not material things. It's not constantly driving for more. It's much more about people and human to human interaction and relationships.
I know one thing that you've done, if you don't mind me asking about that, is that I seem to remember you'd taken up canoeing as one of the things, which I thought was fabulous, with your husband. Is that right?
Yeah, so we bought an inflatable canoe about 18 months ago, and we've been all over, obviously since lockdown. We've been all over the place canoeing. We canoed 23 miles of the Wye Valley last summer, in a day. I would never have got in a canoe before, because it would have splashed my mascara, my lipstick might have smudged, just wouldn't have done it. But I've got a paddleboard, so I've been paddleboarding last summer as well. Just stuff I would never ever have done, because I would just too uptight at the time.
Fantastic. I mean, so our friend, of course, Bill Scott at Wilton Engineering, I think he has a saying about always paddle your own canoe. But unlike Bill, you actually do.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
And one thing that we haven't mentioned, of course, yet, and that I know that you are looking forward to delivering, is that you're actually producing, amid all of this, because you haven't got anything to do, have you? So you're actually trying to put together a book as well.
Yes, so I've been working with Simone Roche, who's the founder of Northern Power Women, and Remember Media, publishing company in the Northeast. And the idea is that we will pull together a book, as you say, that really profiles and showcases the top 100 women in the Northern Powerhouse region and their achievements. And it's not about celebrity status, it's just about the true grit and determination of Northern women and what they've achieved across all sectors. There will be a media campaign surrounding that as well, and then we're looking for ambassadors in all of the schools in the Northern Powerhouse region, female ambassadors that we can connect into. And we launched the crowdfunding campaign on the 6th of March, and we got a great reaction initially. But then within a week, COVID was really getting a grip and businesses were furloughing staff, and it just was not morally appropriate for us to push that. So once we're through this, then we will resurrect that again.
There'll be a relaunch of the whole book project. Well, we look forward to seeing that, and I know that we'll be delighted to help out however we can and publicise that here at Tees Business. I'm sure lots of businesses that are watching this today will do that too, and I'm sure they've enjoyed hearing your story, Jane. So thank you very much for joining us. I don't like to call you a guinea pig, but you are our first victim here on Talking Business. So thank you for being brave enough yet again to be the first to join us. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know people will have enjoyed hearing your story. So thank you, Jane. And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Next week we'll be back again, and we've already got another really exciting guest signed up for next week. All will be revealed in due course on that. Thanks for joining us here on Talking Business with Tees Business. Thank you.
Thank you.